Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be.
Hey there.
What?
I'm here to lurk.
Okay,
I'm gonna lurk because I'm working on some bite-sized trust videos.
cool.
So I think the next topic is going to be in the direction of trust registries and stuff.
Cool.
I've finished. I'm hopefully finally finishing DIDs.
Hopefully, I'm not sure today is going to give you what you want, but the reason I say that is it's very much a GitHub issue PR
Yeah,
review.
that's why
But
I'm gonna lurk.
but I'm also happy to see just we have a lot to cover on that. But definitely, um, to me, that's the story. That's, as you know, that's the thing I'm committed to here at Trust Over IP. But the
Yeah,
trust registries are growing in importance. Fabrice, you're seeing that too. Um, we're recognizing that that's how we create this new web of trust. To borrow a phrase that's been used many times.
yeah. Okay, yeah, because to me, I'm trying to work out the messaging, but it seems like that is where trust registries is where governance can connect with
So
identity.
the way we describe it,
Yeah,
the way I describe it, and many are doing this. If you look at the trust triangle,
yep,
what it gives you is what I think you've seen the phrase throughout Trust over IP of technical trust.
yes,
I know you haven't tampered with it. I know it was signed, but what I don't know is who is the issuer. I
yeah,
just don't. So a trust registry gives you a technical anchoring into the governance.
yes, okay, yep,
So it wires the technical and human trust together.
yeah,
And then what is happening in that ecosystem and how they govern, how they operate. Obviously, that's totally human and it's
yeah,
behind the API of the Trust
yeah.
Resilience Query Protocol. It's not our problem to solve, but it needs to be solved.
So yeah, because the simple solution is if I already know you, I don't need a trust registry because we have a series of DIDs.
Yeah,
And then but the question is to take advantage of the whole point of DIDs in the first place and
yeah,
decentralization, then yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
And have you ever seen this did before type of thing?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
Cool.
there is something else. There is something else. If we want to generalize the usage of verifiable credentials, we need to make sure that ecosystems can launch easily, fast, and we need a mechanism so that we can decide who we will trust and who we will not trust.
yep.
Yeah,
And it's fairly similar to the, how society evolved. I mean, if you take the what at Dunbar's number of 150 people, right?
yeah,
You can maintain that, but the way you connect to a broader audience is, hey, who knows that person?
yeah,
Who is
yeah,
willing to vouch for that person? Who's willing to signal they're my people or they're good to deal with?
yeah,
It's the
yeah. Which
same
is what
mechanism.
Yeah, yeah, because that's what we do with like this is a government official,
Totally.
therefore, yeah. And
Well,
then
it's,
you
yeah,
governed.
great example. So if you take, for example, this is one that we worked on with Sierra ages ago. If Canada and Japan have established trust registries that cross-recognize driver's licenses, for example, and then South Africa comes into the fold and says, I'm connected with Japan. Hey, Japan also recognizes that. That's a hell of a signal to see that a government has recognized. And suddenly you see this new government pops up and no one knows who they are. It's like, huh, weird. They're not connected to anybody. That's kind of odd.
So the trust registry protocol that you're working on allows for hierarchical relationships and not
Totally. Totally.
hierarchical relationships.
Yep.
Okay.
Hierarchical, which supports both.
And that's the yeah.
Yep.
And that's the innovation over like
Over, yeah.
X509-ish things.
Yep. Over a hierarchical system.
Yeah, okay.
Because especially when you bring countries into the mix, because
Yeah.
well, I'm
Who's
just curious,
higher?
who's the top of that hierarchy? Please tell me.
Yeah,
Cool.
I wouldn't say that's the only distinguishing thing, but it is a major distinguishing thing
Yeah.
from, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. We are 5 minutes after the hour, and we have a ton to go through. Actually, it's not that much if anyone's been looking at GitHub. If you haven't been looking at GitHub, we have a whole bunch of things to do. But let's remember, I think everybody here, I think I know everyone here is a member of Trust IP, but just in case, just make sure, remember, we're operating under our antitrust competition-friendly policies. If you are not a member of Trust over IP, please limit yourself to observation status. Chair-wise, I'm the only person here. Actually, I'm going to start editing here if you don't mind. Carly, which one are you, Carly?
I don't know. Oh, I think I don't know.
All right, that's good enough. I'm going to take Drummond with the face.
I don't
Yeah.
even know how I got to.
So I have learned that what's behind that is if you have more than one email address registered with
Yeah.
OFX, that's why
Yeah.
you show up multiple times.
There's two of me as well.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's supposed to be a feature, not a bug, because you're supposed to be
Mitchell,
able
are you a member?
Yeah, I think I signed up last week though, so I'm a
Okay.
recent.
You may want to check into getting yourself into Confluence and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do you
this
have an LFX account? If not, Mitchell, I'll put in the link for getting one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
That's what'll show up there. I gotta find.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, so let's we'll keep an eye on who else drops in over time. I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Tweedale dropped in, but he may be on the road. I don't know he's in our time zone right now, but he might be on the road.
You saw the issue we posted, or I don't know.
Yes, that's why I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if he popped in.
Yes.
Which I think we do have some pretty good answers on that.
Good.
So a couple of things to go through, actually quite a few. So we went through, Andor and I spent a bunch of time last week where both of us are having trouble doing stuff on a very, very scheduled basis, just so we're doing things asynchronously, snagging time when we can. I see Scott just jumped in. Good morning, Mr. Perry. We went through the repo and a couple of things we've gone through. One is we are recommending that we close off a PR, and wanted to let you know of a emergency PR because one of us, not Andor, broke the build. But this PR came in ages ago, and it's been taken over. It was a spelling change on an item. There was an LFX part missing, but we're just going to close this PR because has been overtaken by events. The fix doesn't even exist anymore in the documents. This particular PR, let me just load it. Why is it not opening? There we go. I broke the build. Forgot to do a local build when I changed a V1, and a bunch of the files didn't come in. So when we actually did the PR of a prior one that had been approved, it broke because we had a V1, V2 change. So that was the only thing that was on that one in particular, and you can take a look at that. And we merged that on the 25th after I jumped on a call with Andor just to make sure that, it was as simple as trivial as I believed it was, which he also agreed. So if we take a look at issues as well, if anyone, I'm going to copy this link. All right. Why can't I click these links? Does anyone? Oh, I see. I've got a grammar.
Oh, here's the way it works now. When you're editing a page,
Yeah.
you have to.
Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay.
Yes.
We have numerous issues. You'll see this status motion to close. So I'm going to copy this link in because what we're planning on doing by the end of the day or early tomorrow is taking all of these and closing them. I'm going to, where did the chat go? Chat. Okay. Issues with motion to close. So those are now in the chat. If you do want to review them, please do. They've been there for a while. The goal is to clean things up as we approach public review. We don't want dangling issues. We want to make sure that these things are dispositioned well, that there's no dangling pieces where people are wondering what happened. You know, was something accepted? Was it rejected? Was it moved to future? You'll see some of these, for example. These are fixed, for example, but some of them are on hold. Some of them we've actually bumped for later. We've actually moved them and said, you know, some of these are going to be handled in a later future version, as we've talked about many times as a group. But let's go through a few of them if we want to. This one here, authorization ID to assertion ID. This was cleaning up. This was the terminology inconsistencies. We had agreed and we made a decision to standardize on assertion ID. This was a cleanup task. Simplify the paths. This was just another ticket that was talking about where we had the HTTP exemplars for the endpoints. We had /v2/recognition /v2/authorization. We've just removed the v2. It's not overly helpful at this point in time. Metadata, it is now fully abstract. I'm going to actually open that one up. There we go. Strange, I could double click on that one. So this is, yeah, I don't know if we've reached an answer on this one. Other than we made a decision to leave metadata for the future, but which is hard.
Concretize, that's an interesting word. Concretize. Okay.
Yeah, I was making words up at the time.
There you go.
The difficulty is this, is that when someone says, I want metadata, it's like, great, tell me what your metadata are. And you end up in a bad place really, really quickly, meaning no answers. What's hilarious is this happened in the 90s with the geospatial world.
Right.
And they ended up on, I don't know if I shared with everybody, I think at one point we talked about Z39.50, which is kind of a, I don't know if it's a dead standard, but it's a we give up kind of approach. It's a, yeah, you're going to have to on an ecosystem basis decide what metadata is and what it means to you.
Right, okay.
I'm going to also raise that up to Auntie A Fox. Because it's one that has dangled for some time. I was pleased and displeased both because I agree metadata is important, but to actually then we went through and we actually removed the endpoint completely, which is good, but because it means that others can take profiles, as we've talked about profiles being, hey, we support the TRP 2.0 and we do more. The and we do more is a great place to do things like metadata. There's a motion to close on the signing of responses. Interestingly, this came up in some other discussions over at IRA in that folks are saying we want this to be signed. The past discussions we had with regards to signing responses was that there was no consistency in how we could do this.
Right.
Turns out the party that wanted and was in Singapore a couple weeks back, and they insisted that they have this signed. I said, hang on a sec, you're doing a DIDCOM binding. They're like, yeah. I said, so it's already signed? They're like, yeah, good point. Because the signing of payloads, the signing of even just packages, signing of JavaScript that's being downloaded to the web, there are standards on that. They're not overly used and they're not consistent. That's the hard part. Much like, not as bad as metadata, but signing. I don't know if anybody here was involved with XML signature in the day. Sorry. Semantics for the types of metadata. Yeah. Carly, you understand the metadata it's in the eye of the beholder, right? It's and people have very different views on metadata.
People are trying to be concrete, but it's just data about data. It's
yeah, exactly. And what would you like?
content.
Well, But once you make room for metadata and you have some consistency in governance and consistency of how ecosystems are interacting, you can actually get some fairly good metadata going. But you have to have done that work and have to have had stuff used in the wild first. So I think we'll end up with some metadata, some basic stuff, and then say extend it here. So I'm going through these just relatively quickly, folks. We talked about signed and stuff. If there are any issues and you have concerns about closing these, please jump in now, or even better, perhaps, or just as good, jump in the ticket, because we want to make sure that we have, documented what's been happening, that people have had a chance to weigh in. A lot of these have been hanging around for a long, long time. This authorization, why parameters do not match. It's actually a duplicate of authorization ID and insertion ID. There was just inconsistencies as we went through and standardized on naming. We had left some pieces on the parameter names. And for fun, I added that one twice. Just don't really need that there twice. High level architecture. I don't remember what this one is. Yeah, so we've added diagrams that talk about the architecture that a trust registry can support multiple ecosystems. We have diagramming to that effect. On a specification basis, I don't think it matters, because your specification, the endpoint you're going to hit is going to be for an ecosystem. You're doing it in the context of an ecosystem. The fact that it's multi-tenant or it has supporting many ecosystems behind it is kind of irrelevant. It's relevant on a different level, meaning if I know that trust registry is handling, say, federal and provincial governments and territorial government stuff in Canada, great. That just tells me it's a richer place to go and learn more. The fact that it's multi-tenant or whatnot on a protocol basis doesn't really change things. So this one's fine in my mind, just to hey, great, we made it some diagrams, which is helpful for implementation guidance. It's helpful for understanding the trust required protocol, but it's nothing substantive would needed to change. Response code if an authorization context is not met. I don't remember what this one was. This is the payment required. Let's see what okay. We agree to context or parameters suggest closing ticket. The original poster. I love this. I love this. This is one of the rules we used to have is the original posters have to be able to close the tickets. The problem is over time we lose some posters, but yeah. So we'll definitely awesome. And that's a really good use of the context object, which we're starting to use that as well, and we're going to be very public about it over at IRA, putting that IRA hat on. It's allowing us to figure out the things that we still need to figure out without polluting the protocol. As we figure stuff out, and Fabrice, as you figure stuff out, and as we come back to the trust registry query protocol, we'll have much more informed business cases to say, here's why the protocol needs to be adjusted, or this is why it doesn't. And here's how we did it over here, and it's a new thing, whether that be Turkle or a metadata standard or something. Authorization ID, as you may notice, I was talking with Andor too much and duplicated that ticket. Oh, okay, it was closed after a PR was accepted. Okay, so that was actually, I missed that it was already closed. Backlog. So this ticket here, we're going to backlog it, meaning not recommend to close, but backlog it. What I mean by that is we're going to deal with this in the future. So we had some good work that was done standardizing kind of the codes that were provided. Given that we've backed away from using that kind of status mapping and are focused really on the standard focus, the spec sorry, the spec focuses on the use of HTTP status codes. This work is still there. It's still a piece of our repo, but it's no longer really part of the spec. So the goal is to actually visit that again later. As Andor says, we should backlog this. We step back from being so prescriptive on how a trust registry manages its own internal state, which to me is a great signal that let's prove that we really have this problem. So Andor put it on the backlog. And then that was it for that. Any comments, thoughts, questions?
This is the, cleanup we need to do.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. It's I don't really like GitHub or Jira and all those types of things, but these are the stages I really like. It's closer to delivery.
Well, it's because it gets easier and easier.
It does. It does. And then just for fun, if we're okay moving on to the next topic, let's make it a little harder. Given that, that's a nice segue, Drummer. Which I actually I don't think it is harder. I wish Alex is Alex. No, he's not on. I'd love to talk to Alex on this in detail, but I'll write something up instead. So what Alex is, sorry, go ahead.
I hope I can start out because I read his message last night.
Yep.
And I'm like, do I fully understand this?
So it sounds like you're in a similar place to me. So couple of pieces of background. So I'll cover off what I believe the ticket's about. Alex is not here, but I'll try to do my best job of channeling him.
Right.
His ticket really raises the question, how do I know what your assertion IDs are? And why I care about them, which really is what do they mean and what are you doing in your ecosystem? How do I learn that the ecosystem run by AMVA, which is not running it is an ecosystem, not running a trust registry yet, but what are the assertion IDs that they're going to use to say, this is a bona fide issuer of a Delaware driver's license, of a Texas driver's license. What's the equivalent in Canada of the issuing of an Ontario driver's license? Where do I find the assertion IDs? What I believe Alex is saying is we need to be able to point them somewhere. And they're saying here is an approach. Claim ID is a URI pointing to a location where the authority ID makes a claim about an entity pertaining to the assertion ID. So this is where you could point to AMVA and say, tell me more about that entity, which is great. Fabrice.
Yeah, I don't see. I think I will repeat what Andor said in the issue. I don't see the point because we already have the assertion ID.
Yeah, see, I look at it this way. I do see the point, but my read of it is it needs to be explored in an ecosystem by ecosystem basis. It is a context level thing, meaning you're welcome to put it in the context or somewhere like as an extension while it gets figured out. Because when you take a look at one of the things we're working on, just talking about what we're doing at IRA, we've just started thinking about, not really working, not throwing them together yet, but that we know we need what we call is integration playbooks. Those integration playbooks are very heavy on the trust registry work that needs to be done in order to expose an ecosystem on a limited basis to the outside world and to consume information from another ecosystem from the outside. We need to get answers to, well, what are the authority IDs in that ecosystem? How do I know what credential type relates to that assertion ID story? Who is the authority ID? What's the assertion ID? But to your point, and much along the lines of session ID, there's no norms or mores about this. There are no norms on this. So it's like, to me, that fits in the context. It's like, hey, I'll tell you the context. I will add the following. We've talked in the past, and it still mentions, but not as detailed as it was. We backed away from it because it was opening up another can of worms, which is profiles. We are working on a profile at IRA that does the following. It's 100% conformant with the TRKP 2.0. Has the slash authorization and slash recognition endpoints. Meets those. But it also has, back to the original part of our trust registry protocol, what we called lookups, where if I'm talking to that ecosystem, I can go directly and query the entity. I can go directly query the trust registry, find out what other registries it recognizes, what entities are in it, but we don't need that in the trust registry query protocol. We're not a discovery protocol. So we're doing that outside of the protocol, and I think that's the pattern we want to stick with, because otherwise we're never going to finish this thing. But
Yeah, I agree with you.
but it's
We
one thing I'm
agree.
going to raise with Alex. They're also part of IRA, is that's a great approach to try in this IRA cards ecosystem of ecosystems that we're building, which aligns with first person. It's a way to, here's a way to do it. Here's how we anchor down to, and they have their DID linked resources. The approach, I think what I saw, Drummond, I'm going to load up that JSON. Oh, yeah. It's hard to look at. One sec. I actually have it in
The pretty
window.
print.
I have it actually on a different in a different view. Where did it go?
Just pick the pretty print.
How do you do pretty prints in a browser?
Yeah. Here, the tick box, pretty print.
Oh, right there. Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I looked at this, I think what this is doing is saying, hey, we know there's a type of agent facts. We have two types of credentials. We have verifiable credential, verifiable attestation, verifiable accreditation to attest. So I infer from this that this is how the checked ecosystem is mechanically determining the following. Who is a fundamental, like a root? Maybe that's an agent fact or something. Who is allowed to, what does it look like when I attest something, and who is allowed to be accredited so that they can attest? So I'm an accredited attester. That's very particular to an ecosystem. Like, it's very unique to how the checked ecosystem and users in there are doing their thing. Similarly, if you look at, let's arbitrarily, I mentioned AMVA. So AMVA, again, is the Association of Automobile Driver's License people down the States. They would have rules that would say who are the issuers. It's a PKI-based system, but you can imagine it being DID-based. They have rules on who's allowed to issue. And it's not a credential-based system. It's this is the list of valid issuers, and here are the keys that they provide. So they've taken checked as looks like they're a credential-based approach, saying here's the proof. AMVA, the proof is you're in my list. EU, trusted list, same thing. You're in my list.
And for us, it's different
Yeah,
as
exactly. The what's behind the protocol, the what's behind the protocol from a specification basis is none of our business. It's
And
the question is,
it's different. You're right when you say this is a query. It's a query to know how the ecosystem works. But the TRQP is to gather if
yeah,
this entity has the right to do that, which is different.
right. So it's the analogy I would use is if I need to know how the AMVA ecosystem or the EU trusted list system works, I'm not going to use the TRQP. I'm going to go native. if I'm anchoring down to, and I have 15 ecosystems that are anchored down to checked, it may be highly beneficial for me to go, I'm going native. Because when I see them, I can go, TRQP is a very simple layer. Do you have the authority? Great. It doesn't say tell me more. If I need to do tell me more, I want to know more about that. Great. I'll do other things.
But it's different because usually when you query the Trust Registry Query Protocol is to get the information related to a particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to know how the capabilities of the Trust Registry.
Now, I agree 100% Fabrice. Business-wise, I may want to know, really, I've never seen that ecosystem before. Let's go traverse it. Let's go figure it out. But that's going to be a wholly different thing because every ecosystem is wildly different.
In our case, we have an indexer that index all the trust registries, and then there is a visualizer in order to see a map of the ecosystems visually.
Right. But and that's your unique, yeah. That's where you're adding value above the protocol, right? That lets me, hey, great, perfect. Oh, that's coming from Fabrice's world. I'm going to go, wow, I get to do this, but we can't standardize that. We can't make the spec for that.
No, we cannot. I agree with you.
Yeah. But I think what's also nice is we have options here. Um, we have the context object, which allows us to provide information that is unique to an ecosystem. If I receive it, I don't know what it is, well, that's okay. If I get it and I know what it is, oh, I may do more, but that's not the protocol's problem, right? You can do that, terrific. That's another signal. Over time, we may find that some of those signals are really useful and should be promoted to be part of the core protocol, which is a great pattern. I mentioned in the geospatial world, we had a thing called vendor extensions. This is back when web maps were first starting, like the tiles you see on Google Maps, they didn't exist yet. What happened is vendors were putting their custom stuff into a standard, into a spec, a web mapping standard. Over time, they watched each other to say, hey, what are they doing? Oh, you know what? We all need that. And it would be promoted up to the core. So it was a really neat learning and signaling effort. So I think we have options on that. Context is one, metadata is another. Which metadata is outside of the spec, but that's something I'll do my best to document as well beyond what Andor has done. Anyone else have any thoughts on this one? Because I think it's great to see Alex jumping in, because I know that in the Web3 world they're actively doing this stuff. Mr. Reed.
Yeah, so as I've been listening to this, I've been looking at the spec, and I'm trying to understand what Alex thought was missing, what why, and and if we can go back up, yeah, go ahead and finish your notes here first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at this and I'm saying, okay. He says one significant field I think is missing from the request and response format is claim ID. And what does he mean by that? And he says it's a URI pointing to a location of where the authority ID makes a claim about the entity ID pertaining to the assertion ID. So as I read that, I'm going, that location is called a trust registry.
Well,
What?
in their case, Drummond, their source of truth, their system of record, if you will, is credential based. So they're saying, give me your answer and then prove it. I think.
Wait a minute. I can't unpack what you just said.
So if I say you were allowed to issue Australia government IDs, if my
Yes.
answer in the trust is require protocol, you're allowed to, entity did check
Be
one,
more
2, 3.
specific, Daryl. What is the authority? What is the assertion? What is the entity that you just said?
So the authority is the system of record, is the system of record, so that literally the trust registry you're asking with context. The entity is the government of Australia ID issuer. And the assertion ID is issue government ID or government.id. This is where the ABNF would help, but a string that says government issuer national ID or something.
So what you just said, I believe, ends up proving a point I want to make in a minute. But I don't think what you just said actually matches the spec. My understanding of what you just said is the authority ID is not the trust registry. Trust registry has its own ID.
Yeah.
You said
It's the ecosystem ID. Yeah.
Yeah, the authority ID is I don't know whatever example, who is actually off, who is making the claim about the entity, and the assertion ID is, of course, what claim is it making. So that's why I don't. Okay, now having said that, what are you saying about the checked system that if the check blockchain is the trust registry,
Yep.
then why do they need a claim ID?
I don't. I think I think the claim ID is it's a resource that points you to here's how I got the answer. Here's the proofs you need. But the claim ID is the term he's using. I don't know if it
Yeah,
has
yeah,
other, like it's
okay.
not, I don't know that the names are hard, right? To me, this is in some ways an example though of trust registry saying, here's the answer I need, and then saying, here's a credential back. Well, okay, then the obvious question is, and who issued that? Now we get into trust registry, credential, trust registry. This is the turtles all the way down problem. But I think what they're doing is correct in saying the following. Directionally, any ecosystem I am depending upon at a deep level, I may need to know its intimate details. But that's beyond the trust registry query protocol.
Actually, I mean, based on my understanding of what we've designed with the protocol, there's a different way to look at that, which is they need to operate a TRQP endpoint, TRQP endpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
That takes a standard TRQP request and they figure out where in their trust registry they answer that. That
Right.
claim ID is not something that the query should need to know. It's
Right.
something their system should need to know. Now, let me point out why I think he's confused about that. If you have a tab open to the spec, or if you don't, whether you're editing it or not, I just, yeah. Okay. So very quickly, just, yeah, in section 5 identifiers, right? You know, we go through and we just say, hey, these are the identifiers we deal with, right?
Yep.
Ecosystem ID, trust registry ID, authority ID, entity ID, right?
Yep.
Now, interestingly enough, we then later, when we get down the information model, we're going to insert, talk about something we call the assertion ID, but we don't refer to that in our identifier section. So it feels like maybe there's something missing explaining the you know, if that's actually going to be an identifier, it feels like it should be an identifier section saying, and this is what this is, right? But the other thing is, if you look now in the information model and you look at the description of these, it doesn't match what we say in the identifier section in section 5, right?
So
I mean,
can you make a ticket for that? Because we need to
uh,
resolve that quickly.
yeah, I mean, this is,
Which part doesn't make it? I can capture the ticket.
well, I'm looking at the examples. Okay, so for instance, entity ID, user device service, etc., about which the assertion is made. Well, first of all, in the up above, we use parties, and we don't talk about parties here at all. And if you're thinking about, for instance, you're describing an issuer, well, an issuer is it's not a user usually, it's not a device, and it's hard to say it's a service, and we don't even use the term issuer here in our description of entity ID. So it's like it's not a very good example, I think. You see what I'm saying? And I mean, I'm not quibbling with these that we have these 4 things. It's just the descriptions of them don't seem to match what we said in our section of identifiers just above in 5. And then we don't cover the assertion ID in section 5, which seems to be a fairly simple way we can just say, look, this is a string that identifies the assertion being made. It's not that hard. So anyway,
Can you and I spend half an hour at some point to hammer through that?
absolutely. We
Cool.
can do that. No problem. I'm sort of trying to figure out where did Alex's confusion about this come from. And so I went back and just
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if it's confusion as opposed to the following. One of the questions we get from people who are thinking of implementing, like in IRA, Drummond, when we get questions on, I'm looking at the TRQP. Okay, where do I get my assertion IDs? They immediately go, oh, now I need to understand the model of who's allowed to do what. If they issue a driver's license, what's the assertion ID that allows them that can signal the outside world to issue driver's licenses?
yep,
So they're
yep,
trying to fill the blanks in of the specification,
yep.
and it's integration work that's absolutely necessary. So I can see why the checked world looked at that saying we need this. The
Yeah,
difficulty is their approach is very different from Fabrice's, very different from EU Trusted List, very different from AMVA. Everybody does it differently.
so that gets to our longstanding, you know, it's just I think a resource issue. Implementation guide, right? I mean, what you just said, Daryl, in
Yep.
a, you know, doesn't have to be that long, but a document that just says, okay, you want to use this spec with your
Yep.
system, you know,
Yep.
take the following things. Just a matter of,
Which what we discussed in the past is that is out of scope, but absolutely necessary.
yeah, it's not part of the spec. That's why I said
We
implement it.
are actively doing that. Meaning when, sorry, changing hats, putting my IRA hat on. And I want to share something just on the screen here to give an idea of two things we're doing. I don't have the integration playbook. We've just started with that. I'm actually going to bring Alex's concrete example into that as a, hey, here's one example of a member who's asking the question. But
Cool.
there were two things we talked about as being out of scope, of many of them, but two of the key ones. One was integration guides. The other was profiles, which is where we say, hey, I do the I support the TRQP, but I have a profile that limits how I do it
Yeah,
in conformance with the spec and extend it without breaking the spec. So I
right.
wanted to just show you, this is just a screenshot of where we're working towards. We don't have a running API right now, but this is just a Swagger diagram, just Swagger rendering. Sorry, it's just of the two key queries, recognition and authorization. They conform, they're using post, they use exactly the format. We have to test that, but the format of the spec.
Hey, just let me point out one thing for Carly's benefit. I mean, just so in thinking about this bite-sized trust,
Yep.
recognition is the hierarchical traversal across authorities, and authorization is down. Once you get there,
Yep.
okay, I need to know something for which you are authoritative. I've figured out where I'm going. Okay.
Okay. Well, one of the things I've realized with did stuff, and I forget who else I was having this conversation with, but oh no, Stephen Curran, that what are the roles in your ecosystem? Because we need
Yep.
a
Yep.
way, but
Yep.
standard way to say in the ecosystem, here are the roles. Like when I log into Azure, I can see all like the 3 or 4 pages of roles that can give different permissions, because then I can delegate with a did to say Drummond has this role.
Yeah, that's an approach. And this is where
Okay.
you get into the, but
Oh
your
yeah,
question, the high level generic question of what are the roles in your ecosystem?
yeah,
That it really is the starting point. It's oh, I just bumped into your ecosystem. Who are you? Oh, I need to learn stuff about you. Again, this is outside of the spec. But in order to connect intelligently, you need to know answers.
So
because we need a syntax for expressing roles in an ecosystem.
so just now I can do a second connection. Roles are a subset of what we call assertion IDs. Assertion is any kind of ID you can make, any kind of assertion you can make inside that ecosystem. And typically, a role is exactly that kind of thing. Who can be an issuer? We call it an assertion ID because it's typically not just enough to say you can be an issuer in our ecosystem. You typically have to say you can be an issuer of, a diploma, right?
Or specifically, I need to know exactly so that a role should be machine readable and not to be
Yeah.
understood to be like, if you have this thing, or you can write this kind of VC with this kind of detail and stuff, to be very specific and limited.
The difficulty, this is where you get into the reason that the spec is limited to what it is every role-based access control system can be wildly different.
Yeah.
You may end up with, no, it's not a role-based, it's an ABAC, it's an attribute-based system. It's a rules-based system. What you
Yeah.
need in order to make the decision, were you allowed to do that thing, is an answer.
Yeah.
Right.
The next thing is, how did you get to that answer? That's a wholly different question,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's important.
So let me say one more thing to just connect the dots for Carly. The idea and the ultimate sort of simplicity on the other side of complexity we were after with TRQP is that we simplify everything for the verifier if there's a clear way for the issuer or the ecosystem to communicate the assertion ID associated with that credential, because then the verifier simply, they don't have to know whether it's role-based or rule-based or
Yeah.
else. They simply go, ah, this credential is claiming that it's authored under this assertion ID, right?
So,
And
okay, Drummond, so are your assertion IDs kind of like the atomic units? If I pull it back to Azure, then it can say you are an atomic thing might be you have you have the action of delete within these specific folders. You have the action of create within these specific folders. Like right down to are those kinds of things
Yes.
assertion IDs?
So here's a concrete example. We're looking at, on a sort of a play basis, an IRA member credential.
Yeah.
So you receive one of these things. You get this credential. You're like, huh, it's part of IRA. You go and ask our registry, is that issuer allowed to issue an IRA
Right.
member credential? Yes or
Right.
no? And you'll get an answer.
To issue an IRA member credential has an assertion ID.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So we're
And
talking
that's
about
something we are working on. That's part of our guidance on
yeah.
on IRA cards is the thing we're working on with First Person Project. It also is forcing us to answer these questions, and that's guidance we're making public of here are the things in the ecosystem. You need to know
Yeah.
who can issue. You need to know what type of credential that is. What authority, what assertion ID was it issued under? So
Yeah.
that you get enough information so you can actually know who to ask the question and what question to ask.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
governance. Got it.
So, Carly, again, just to clarify one thing, you asked like right down to permissions inside, who can read and write certain objects, things like that. Think of it as breaking that into two parts. Okay, the granularity of a particular system and the permissions or authorizations inside that system. If you assume those will be communicated via a credential issued by an authority, the TRQP does not have to get down into the semantics inside that credential. The TRQP handles who is authorized to issue that type of credential.
Yep.
That's what it's after. You're on mute.
Oh yeah. Sorry. So those roles and rules and everything are specific to the ecosystem that's
Yep.
in there, but you yourself have your own rules and roles.
Yep.
And those need to be automatized to
So think of it as
evidence.
the two
Yeah.
levels
Two
are
worlds. Yeah.
credentials,
Yeah.
rules issuing credentials, and then semantics inside credentials that can get very, very specific but are outside the scope of TRQP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the examples, Carly, we've been using in the past was professional registries. So lawyers, professional engineers, accountants. You can imagine two different worlds. Two different things that those can provide. One is a credential that says I am a professional engineer. Up until I moved to BC, I was a licensed professional engineer in the province of Ontario. I could have had a credential that you could have asked PEO registry, is this good? Or actually a national registry, is this a licensed PEng? A non-credential use case would be, I just received a document signed by this DID. He says he's a professional engineer. Is he allowed to sign these documents? Which is not a credential base. You're just checking the DID. Is this DID authorized to sign under PEO Ontario law? Yes or no? Very different questions. It's the same system behind it giving you the answer, though.
Right. In that case, the assertion ID is literally allowed to sign under Act.
Yep.
Something, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, Daryl, all this is illustrated to me is, again, just that action item that you and I will have to
Yep.
clarify the language under, those two sections, just so,
Yep.
yeah. Because
Where did I put that? Did I save the issue?
don't know. You put it in the notes. I saw that. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Number 149. So you and I will add some more meat to this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Yep. But these are the questions that we're seeing on the outside from folks, very much, Carly, like you're asking, from folks that are actively saying, I have systems of record or a system of record, and I want to start using this. Huh, what do I need to do? What's the work I need to do to use that thing?
Yep.
So
That's where, for the others on the call, this is why First Person Project is sitting here, because we want to have, proof of personhood uh, uh, responses, right?
yep,
And we want them to be verifiable across any ecosystem that is using
yep.
first person credentials. And
And you want it at scale, which means,
that's
hey,
right.
Drummond, what's the assertion ID is not an answer, right? You need to codify all of that so people can take
Yeah.
what they know and run.
The funny thing is, because and I think most folks are aware, but we just opened the Decentralized Trust Graph Working Group, which will begin its weekly meetings next Wednesday. I need to get the information out to everyone. But it's going to be like, the whole ecosystem is going to, there literally may be like a half dozen assertion IDs. That's it. The whole thing is very, very simple, very
Yep.
standard, very widely, right?
Yep.
But those assertion IDs are going to be, everywhere.
Yep.
They're just going to be a small set.
Yep. So, okay. So we've gone through all of these things. I definitely have some capture to do. And please, folks, especially let's give Alex the respect his request needs by adding to the issue if you can. I'm certainly going to add some. Andrew's already added some, so that we understand that his question is heard, but also that we believe there are answers to be found later. But if, in the meantime, I think context is a place to put that. But we'll see what yeah, if I do my analysis at least, and please jump in with yours. But sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to point out, I think he's planning on being on the high assertion, high assurance vid call
Cool.
later this morning. So, assuming he's there, I will bring it up to him
Perfect.
there.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. So jumping topics, we got just under about 7 minutes left in the call. As we talked about last meeting, there is room opening up for chairs for the Trust Registry Task Force. Andor is likely going to need to move on. He's extremely busy. I'm going to be staying on. At least that's my plan. We need to just, throw that out there. Do some thinking if you're available, if you have availability to help lead this. We are moving into a public review relatively quickly, as soon as we can. My hope would be by the middle of the month, but let's see if we feel that that's correct. So just think about that. We are also really leaning to see if we can find someone on the APAC side to help lead the charge there to make sure that we can handle the APAC time zones. Right now we have a time that works well for Australia, doesn't work so well for places like Singapore and Delhi and others that are a little further back. But yeah, think about that. Any other questions or thoughts?
Oh no, this has been good. This is what we got to do. Get it all the way out the door.
I have one question around assertion IDs.
Yep.
Does the assertion ID have any meaning outside of being a string? Or is it like, do you see a world where, in the same way that you get these novel transaction hashes and wallet addresses on chain,
Yep.
people might be like farming for cool assertion IDs?
Yes, no. When I say no, right now it is just a string. However, there is effort, and I'm just trying to figure out where it is. There is mention. Yeah, see, this is part of the problem we've got right now as a cleanup item that I got to make sure is an issue, Drummond, is we talk about TRQL as if
Yeah.
it's a real thing, meaning it exists and you just use it to answer Mitch's question. But it's an anticipatory. TRQL is going to do this. The goal is over time, Mitch, that we would actually use kind of an ABNF format with some semantic guidelines. We're going to see examples of that in the IRA world. We do have an approach, but it may not be the approach. I'm not even sure right now. I'm quite sure right now it doesn't fit A, B, and F. But for now, it's going to be arbitrary strings. But
Okay.
here's how I, as a recovering CTO, recovering developer, I would be logging every kind of assertion ID that I saw. And when I kept seeing one, I'd be like, what's this IRA cards.business card thing? I want to know. I keep seeing it. Oh, I can,
Yeah.
wow, I can use that. So I definitely would be farming, harvesting that
Yeah, that's
myself.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just the same thing as, I mean, back in the day when ActiveX DCOM was out with Microsoft, people were farming GUIDs. Like
Mhm.
this was the GUID I would keep an eye on for because I knew I could do something with it. It was absolutely brutal to do.
Yeah.
So
And I think, yeah, with AI, that's going to be just automated, and then you actually reveal things through
yeah,
like what you thought was a string, but through moments in time and space and that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
and people don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? They're going to take a software library that uses an assertion ID. But they won't be registered in a trust registry.
Yeah,
So you'll
exactly.
end up
Yeah.
with these
Oh,
nice
okay.
breakages, or oh, if why would I register? Oh, hey, I just joined an ecosystem.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. If there are no further questions, folks, I would happy to give you back 2 minutes of your day. Very generous of me.
Bathroom break before the ecosystem and governance call.
Awesome.
Yeah, Thursday mornings are like 4 hours of trust over IP. Trust over IP morning for me. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, appreciate it. Bye.